There it is. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Design Matters webinar. Guys, we're recording this too. This is live. If I'd like to welcome you if you're just jumping in. I know we're going to get started here in just a few minutes, but welcome to the Design Matters webinar. We are recording this and we'll send you the links afterwards in the next day or two. And as you're dropping in, we have time set aside at the end for some Q&A. And so we'd like you to use the Q&A feature in Zoom so we don't lose those questions. So chat in chat, Zoom Q&A in Q&A. And if you take a moment in the chat to adjust your settings so that it says everyone, we want everyone to see your chat. By default, it's set to the panelists.
It
So we
looks
love having a
like
great chat.
we're getting notes that the chat is disabled, and when I try to send something, it's going
Well,
only to listen panelists.
I'll check,
that's
I'll check that on the back end. One moment.
thanks, Jennifer. And we will get started here in a moment. As
Everyone's
we
trying to
do,
chat. It's always a lively chat. We got to make sure we
we
turn
need
on
chat.
the chat.
If yeah, can we have chat through Q&A? I don't think that would work as well.
Oh yeah, make sure Q&A is on too at the same time, Jennifer, if you can.
It looks like Q&A is on. So questions in the Q&A, and once we get chat up and running, we'll let you all chat because we want to hear where you're from. And I have a great question for you to think about. So when chat gets enabled, think about this question. What is your favorite interactive game? So I mean like board game, maybe it's a video game, maybe it's just one of those games you played on the playground with your friends in second grade. What's one of your favorite interactive games? So think about that. We'll get to that here in a minute. And once chat's enabled, you can drop your name and where you're from and all that good stuff.
Does anyone remember how to enable the chat?
It should be in instructor tools, admin tools. I don't have host access here.
Yeah.
All right, let me keep trying. It's not letting me edit on the back end. I don't know if that's because it started, but
I'm just Googling it for us to see if we got Google, right?
This is the moment where we say, Kristen, we miss you. We're glad you had a great trip.
I hope this is not true, but I think you might have to do it when you're setting the webinar meeting up.
Oh, interactivity webinar without chat. Classic. All right. Well, you know what? While we're working on that in the background, do we want to just keep rolling so we can get to the good stuff for everyone out there? Thank you for hanging out. If you didn't hear, if you're just joining, we're working on getting the chat enabled. So,
bear with us.
Yeah.
This is our first Zoom, so we our first time. No, Stephanie. So we'll get started, and you guys, we would love to hear from you in chat. Hopefully, we can get the chat opening here soon and shortly. We are recording this meeting, and we will send out this link along with some other helpful links in the next day or two. Questions, we'll go into the question and answer. So please use the Q&A option when you're asking a question. Don't throw those in chat. They just get lost in all the goodness over there. So drop them in the Q&A. And it looks like chat is open. Thank you, Jennifer, saving the day for us. So chat's open. Welcome, welcome. Tell us where you're coming in from, and let us know, what is your favorite interactive game? The favorite game you like to play as a kid. Maybe it's a video game. Maybe it's a board game. Maybe it's one of those choose your own adventure book games. But let us know where you're from and what is one of your favorite games.
I personally loved, does anyone remember when 2048 dropped and it was like you slide them around and do the combinations? My friends hid it from me for a long time. Like they never told me that was happening and that was cool because they were worried that I would like become consumed. They were correct. But that was one of my favorite games in recent years.
It's low key, maybe one of my faves too. And it's so easy to do on your phone, right? I think it's an interface thing. It's you can play the game with one finger, you know what I
Totally.
mean? And I see Candyland from Jess, also a classic game. That can get intense. I got 4 kiddos. Like Candyland is cutthroat, man. Like that game is crazy. I have okay, Cards Against Humanity from Christopher. All right. Any other fun games out? Zork as a kid? Ethan probably played Zork as a kid. I'm just guessing.
No, I'm sorry, I don't know what that is.
Aaron, there's some good ultimate frisbee, right? Folks love ultimate frisbee in Utah. I don't know what it is, but it's a thing.
I saw Mousetrap. I really like the very analog physical understanding of interactive that is. Yeah. Well, those are
Love
fun.
it.
Brad, do we want to kick us off and get rolling as people
Yep.
throwing
Let's
ideas
do
in?
it. Let's do it. So today's webinar, it's part of our Design Matters series. And so we're glad that you all have joined us again. And today we're going to be sharing how to bring Canvas content to life easy, with easy interactive design, with no tech wizardry needed. So it's not just about making things look cool and rad. We're also here to share some research behind why these interactive elements are important and actually boost learning. So let me introduce you to us. So Stephanie is our product manager and marketing manager. She's the primary researcher behind the Design Matters blog and the webinars. If you haven't read those blogs, check them out, sign up, and we'll send you those links as well. Ethan is here too. Ethan, I think, is coming in his normal character if you've seen him before. We're going to see like true Ethan today. He's one of our instructional tools developer. He builds amazing features for us in DesignPLUS. And can I say founder of the DesignPLUS library? Can I add that to your title?
Sure, you can do that.
Founder of the librarian. Maybe I'll call you that.
Yeah, head librarian. There you go.
It's a great movie. So I'm Brad Moser. I am the National Sales Director, the K-12 Sales Director, former Cidi Labs customer, former physics teacher, former Director of Blended Learning here in Kansas City. And I love these tools so much. I just wanted them to share these with other schools and teachers. And so here I am. We're just the small fraction of the team that make these tools and provide these tools for you all. So thanks for joining us. We have some other team members that are in the chat. If you're in the chat there, say hi. Especially shout out to Claire, who is one of our amazing and super quick in response support team. If you haven't crossed paths with Claire, you will today. She's awesome and she's in the chat. And if this is your first time joining us, for those that are maybe it's your first time or you're new to Cidi Labs, let me tell you a little bit about what we do and our tools. So Cidi Labs was founded out of a partnership with Utah State University, where Kenneth Larson, who is our co-founder, was working as an instructional designer, and he was given permission to hack Canvas and started making the first iteration of what later became known as DesignPLUS. And over the years, our team has grown with educators and instructional designers, as well as former customers. I think the 3 of us on this call, former customers. And we're drawn to improving the learning experience. We have 6 products for Canvas, from accessibility to course lifecycle management. All these tools have been deployed in partnership with our customers and through our partnerships with universities. And today we're going to be showing off DesignPLUS, which is a must-have design suite of 3 tools that make up the creative content tools for Canvas that are accessible, they're affordable, they're super fun. And if you're curious about any of these products, please reach out. We are happy to demo them or get you into a sandbox so you can play with them yourself. So as I mentioned, this is part of a Design Matters live series that started in response to your feedback and a growing need for more researched backed connections to the design challenges that we face. Each month, we publish a blog post in the Design Matters Digest where we share research and how design impacts our particular educational topics. We offered practical tips to improve our course design and basically how we apply that research in action, and we love to share it out. So these webinars take the blog content that you're reading about, and we try to bring them alive. We try to share examples, give you some live demos, have some discussions, the Q&A. Again, put the Q&A into the Q&A, and you can have chat and chat. And then we like to try to give you some actionable steps that are backed up by this wonderful research. So if you didn't already hear, we're branching the Design Matters focus from specifically to design. We're going to branch out into accessibility and have kind of a wing of accessibility matters. So similarly, you'll get practical research-backed tips in your inbox and can attend these webinars to see it in action and take a deeper dive. And speaking of accessibility, this is a plug for an upcoming webinar. We have a co-hosted webinar with Instructure that takes place May 15th, I believe. May 15th. We'll drop the link here in chat. And it's around it takes a village approach to accessibility. And so we'd love for you to join us and Instructure as we talk about all things accessibility on that chat, on that webinar. So with that, let's turn our attention to today's webinar. Stephanie?
Yeah, thanks, Brad. Hi, everyone. I'd imagine your attendance today indicates that you know the power of interactivity and you know what it can do for learning and motivation. But there's still the question of how can you implement interactivity, right? And where might it be effective when using your course designs? So if you read the most recent digest, you got a sense for some of the research-backed tips for designing effective interactive learning experiences and how our tool DesignPLUS makes it really easy. So today we'll be diving deeper and demoing solutions live. But we want to kick things off with a really important understanding. Just because it's interactive doesn't mean it's good design. We want that to really sink in with you today. And so we've got some funny examples to help us illustrate the point. So if you've never seen these, there are these worst UI competitions. Often they're like hosted on Reddit or something, where designers create really terrible interfaces sure to deliver a bad user experience. This is one from the worst volume control competition. So you'll notice that it's super interactive, right? You use this little slipping bar to adjust volume, but it's also super frustrating. It's so easy to accidentally blast the volume without wanting to. And here are a few of my other favorites from the competition. One requires the user to make a noise as loud as they want the volume to be. And so just imagine having to like adjust your voice over and over again, like louder, louder, right? Another example in that lower corner provides a huge number of radio button options. And what's great is this example gives so much choice and precision, and yet it takes up a huge amount of space and has clearly far too many inputs. And while hopefully that was kind of fun and silly, right? You might be wondering, what does this have to do with interactive course design? But the concept is the same, right? That not all interactivity is good. And so the research really reminds us here that you can incorporate all kinds of tools, right? From discussion boards, online quizzes, embedded video, and other interactive elements. But the research done by the US Department of Education found that the mere presence of such tools did not seem to actually affect student learning. What did affect student learning were technology tools that gave students more control over their interactions. That's good, with media and any kind of other like interactive elements online, and those that encouraged learner reflection. So that's helpful, right? Just because it's razzle-dazzle doesn't make it good. Studies also suggested that too much interactivity particularly in the form of like multimedia presentations, or, you know, you can imagine like a lot of flashy stuff all over a page, could lead to diminishing returns or negative responses. And the idea is that you can also cause cognitive overload with too much interactivity pretty easily. So with all that said, for today's agenda, we'll be sharing some not so great design examples to make this point clear, and then we'll follow up those examples with research-backed strategies for thoughtful, effective, interactive design. Specifically, we'll highlight how to employ interactive design to structure your content, to promote learner assessment, and to differentiate without distracting your learners, all in order to ultimately support that active learning and boost engagement in your Canvas courses. So Ethan, you want to kick us off?
Yes, absolutely. It's been a lot of fun building some examples and non-examples inside of Canvas to illustrate some of these principles. So right here, we're looking at a beautiful homepage. Isn't it beautiful? Look at those images. Oh, gorgeous. The only problem is, what are you supposed to do? You know, you're looking at it like, is this one of those like Apple intuitive, just double tap, swipe right 3 times, and then, you know, you're good. No, this is not clear to students. What do I do with these images? Am I supposed to click? If I click on them, where do I go? What happens here? So yes, beautiful grid image layout design, but no real instruction or context. So instead of mystery interaction, try adding some context. You can still have beautiful layouts and designs, but make it clear what they are and what you're supposed to do with it. So adding links. So there you go. Apparently this was a series of links to the different modules in the biology course. So having text to explain that to students, as well as links that are much more clear and accessible. Really adding context makes this work a lot better. So our next example, avoiding clunky interaction. Imagine if this was your syllabus. This is like one of those professors that's like, oh, flip cards, that's super cool. I think I'll just put my entire syllabus on the back of a flip card, you know? Yeah, it is super cool, and students love clicking things, but this is really going to be very frustrating to try and navigate and read and understand any of your syllabus if it's just on the back of a flip card like that. So great interactivity, I guess, but not great for learning design here. So
Hey,
instead,
Ethan,
yeah.
it is cool that you can scroll in a flip card though. I didn't realize that. So I'm just gonna say, while maybe not best use case,
Yeah.
it is it is cool to know that that's possible.
It is
So
possible, but if your scroll bar little pill thing is that big, yeah, you've got a problem there. So instead, try reducing clutter, and instead use flip cards for, like, you know, compartmentalizing a small amount of information in an interactive way. Accordions are awesome. You can expand and collapse them so that the entire page is not, you know, just filled with all this information. This syllabus would be a lot easier for a student to navigate and understand, and still has some of those interactions that actually reduce clutter instead of create it. And then finally, we've got some cumbersome interaction here. Accordions are great. I just said that, didn't I? Well, what if you had an accordion for every little section of content, and instead of just writing out your content with, you know, headers and paragraphs, you put everything inside of accordions. So as soon as you finish reading a couple sentences, you've got to click the next accordion and click the next accordion and click the next accordion. And it becomes cumbersome and tedious and just a needless friction for the students as they're trying to navigate through the page. So instead, use those types of things for additional information or optional resources, things that, you know, again, that might clutter your page or that you want to sort of keep out of the way. But text and content should be visible to the students and easy to read through. So when you're looking in the bottom right there, you've got a smaller accordion kind of tucked out of the way for videos, websites, simulations. Let's take a closer look at how that looks on the flow of the page. You can see how it, you know, it makes more sense in this way to use an accordion like that. So just a few examples of how you might see some of this inside of Canvas.
Yeah, thank you, Ethan. And those examples that Ethan provided really highlight the impact of our first topic for today, which is employing interactive content structure. So what does the research say about interactivity and content structure, and what are some strategies for turning that research into design? Ethan has certainly shared some, but let's go over them together with that research. So when we're thinking about the research for course structure, that's really where we're going to start. So you'll see that first bullet point lets you know that a well-structured interface reduces confusion and allows students to focus more on the learning content. That's what we want, right? We want structure to support their focus on the learning content. Intuitive navigation contributes to positive user experience as well, because navigation and structure are all sort of related, right? A detail connected with that is that students report lower levels of self-efficacy and motivation after interacting with courses rated low in findability. So if the information you're trying to find is like difficult to find, if it's hidden, or if it's set up in that clunky syllabus flip card, right? You can't get to that really important information. That doesn't just impact learning, it actually impacts also the learner's sense of their ability to learn. And that is really tragic. So what we can do to combat that, we can organize content into labeled and even interactive structures, and that can help reduce cognitive load, and it can help increase mental model formation. And if you've been to any of these, you probably hear me harp on mental models all the time, but this is the idea that you can actually support your learners creating the mental structures for storing the information in their head. Think about a simple example. If you're comparing and contrasting two things, having them side by side to compare and contrast helps you store the information that way in your brain as well. So we love a good structured design to help us. And so what are the actionable strategies? How do we turn that research into action? So one tip would be to use like interactive column structures for comparison, as I mentioned, or even with content that needs the same visual weight. So if you want them to sort of be like options of the same weight or ideas of the same weight, having them display horizontally like that with columns can be really helpful. Another idea is to scaffold steps. So step-by-step instructions, especially if they have a good deal of information in each step, put those into accordions or expanders or tabs, right? So that the students can interact with each step and take that in without being distracted by another step. Little caveat here, do be careful hiding necessary information, such as the flip card syllabus, right? That syllabus is like key information for the course. And instructors struggle enough getting students to read the syllabus. Don't put it behind a flip card. And so another strategy would be add context on or around interactive elements with labels and instructions. So like Ethan's homepage example, right, that provided some context information for the interaction, rather than just assuming like, here's interactivity, I bet you all know how to interact with it. That context can be really powerful.
All right. Well, it's all good and everything, but I remember first getting into Canvas doing instructional design work, and I wanted, my pages to really look good. Trying to do everything through inline styles and the RCE. Finding someone online was like, there's this ancient rumor that if you copy and paste this code with fragment tab IDs, you can acquire tabs on your page. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have no idea how it works, but I'm definitely doing that. Copy and paste. Or the CSS, the style sheet from Canvas that they tried to bury and deprecate, but everyone's still using it because they're like, I just want columns
Yes,
without
we
having to use
were.
tables. Or I'll just use tables, whatever. Anyway, it's difficult, and coding it, you might not understand how all of that works. So what Stephanie's going to show you now is how DesignPLUS really takes a lot of the mystery out of it and makes it very simple and straightforward for you to add some of these structures on your pages.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll do some examples, and then we'll do a little behind the scenes what's going on with DesignPLUS here. But I'll start with one example, talking a little bit about how you can use column structure, you can use interactivity. So here, Brad actually talked about this example because he said his kids love those like step-by-step drawing activities. And I was like, that's so true. My son is like recently obsessed with these. So use this as a fun example to showcase. And so we've got our steps broken down here, 5 steps in these accordions. They are interactive, so you can pop them open. And what I want to say here, though, is that I have historically been a person who says, people ask like, when should I use accordions? When should I use tabs? And if it was like step by steps, I was like, hey, you should use accordions. And especially if the directions were going to put the next, if it were tabs, put the tab out of your visual space and you'd be at the bottom, you'd forget that there was another tab up there. And then you've got students who didn't read steps 3, 4, and 5 because step 2 took them out of that space where they could see the tabs at the top. So I've been a big, like, if it's step by step, put them in accordions person, until the DesignPLUS team came out with the previous and next buttons recently, and that just like changed my world. And I was like, well, we can for sure use tabs for steps now. And in fact, I really like it for this particular example. So again, talking about the nuances of how we use design and how we combine that with interactivity. Before, up here, by the time I got to step 5, now my ducks aren't in a row. And like, nobody wants their ducks to not be in a row, right? So here, the tabs are actually helping with that. I can just skip on through, but I can also do that now here at the bottom to do previous and next that are just controlling the tabs. These are not canvas previous and next for the pages. It's just for the tabs, which is super amazing. And now my ducks are in a row. So love it, right? Some other uses for our tabs. This is an example of a really cool like weekly schedule. And so sometimes you want to be careful with your layering panels, like if you're putting accordions inside of tabs and things like that, because it can get really messy and be that clunky interaction that we told you we should avoid earlier. But there are some really great use cases for this. And this might be one, because here you have this kind of highly interactive piece that takes a ton of information and reduces it. So we've got weeks 1 through 8 that I can flip through, but that agenda stays there. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, pretty cool. But I want to show you something. I want to show you that even inside this, we can think a little bit about the design, and I'll show you a little bit about how this is working in the background, because you heard Ethan talking about like copying and pasting all that code in, and it can get really messy. But when you're in DesignPLUS, not only is it really easy to add these elements because they're just listed as elements, I can just say, hey, I want accordions, type those in, I'll select accordion and they'll drop them on there. But I already have some tabs over here. But I also want to show you, notice how there are these borders around everything that tell you where you're working. So it's like what you see is what you get style. And that's amazing for working with these kind of complicated interactive elements. Takes the complexity right out. But if you noticed before, we had kind of a double stack of the tabs, right, going horizontally. Inside DesignPLUS, it's also really easy to change the style of your tabs. So right now, say I click on this like week 1 heading. If I go to edit these tabs, and by selecting my tabs and I'm working with them, I have the option to change the styling of these and say, maybe I want them to be now vertical tabs. So I just want the weeks to be vertical tabs, but I want the days of the week to not be. And just like that, I selected one button. And if I come back out and save this page, you're going to see that the interface of that interactivity has changed. And I think it's like kind of clean because now it mimics a calendar with the weeks stacked vertically and then the days stacked horizontally. And so you can see how easy it is to design your interactivity with DesignPLUS. We have some other really, really cool ways that you can utilize tabs if we're already talking about them in structure. You can essentially create a slideshow inside Canvas using these vertical tabs. You've got the previous and next buttons for learners to just flip right through that. And you also have the ability to choose to make things full screen by applying that functionality in DesignPLUS. Super cool. We love this because this helps you create accessible presentations for your learners inside the Canvas Rich Content Editor, rather than having to like finagle accessibility considerations in PowerPoint. So kind of jumping over to a completely different set of thinking about interactivity, moving away from the tabs element, but I did still mention columns earlier. And here you can see how the column structure of this setup helps me understand the like the time period and the evolution of Matisse's style over time. So the column structure is really helpful for that. And you can also see I've applied our image ratio feature that allows the images to have the same size inside these cards. Makes it look really beautiful, allows the learners to do this comparison. But this is a webinar about interactivity and not just about column structure, right? And so what's really cool is I've also applied our image gallery pop-up option to this entire content block. Again, I select one button to say that. And now my learners can also select the images and they get the full image with its like original ratio and the caption that I assigned to it, both for accessibility reasons and for comparison. And this is a gallery, so they can just flip right through and do that more in-depth comparison of these items. So the interactivity allows it to support the image ratio in one version of it and the like deeper look in another. The last idea, we talked about contextualizing your interactivity. So, you know, here we've got a Canvas page. DesignPLUS allows you to add contextualization to maybe some of your favorite interactive tools that live outside of Canvas or outside of DesignPLUS. Here we've got, you know, a learning opportunity with this video that's floated to the right, an easy way, again, to incorporate interactivity. But we have this game as well that is embedded right in the page, and our iframes and our embed tool allow you to play around with resizing and putting this element on the page with the contextualization surrounding it with the learning material. And you can either have it take up kind of this much visual real estate if you'd like, or we've talked about, you know, columns and tabs and all of that supporting the functionality of your interactivity. Maybe you want them to focus on learning first before they jump over and play and get distracted by, you know, doing the like fun little moving around all the blocks, you know, first, hey, please learn first, then go play, right? And so hopefully that gave you a sense of some of the design considerations and ways to apply what we were talking about before. So now, oh, I'm on the wrong. Oh, nope, I'm in the right space. All right, Ethan, we're back to you for our next segment.
All right, excellent. So on this page, this might be a page that looks familiar. Just lots of text, right? And it's easy for things to kind of get lost. Down at the bottom, there's questions to consider. You can see the arrow pointing at it. It just sort of blends in. There's no real call to action. So my guess is that many of your students will not consider those questions. They'll just kind of breeze by it. And so instead, try adding in some interactive elements. You can see we've transformed this page, not only just with the layout, making it easier to read and navigate, but that questions to consider is getting more prominence and actually has some different question types and things that you can add into it. So on the next slide, you can see students can check boxes. They can type in their answers. They can select from multiple choice and get feedback. These things, it's important to note, are not saved in any way, shape, or form. So this does not get submitted. This does not get graded. This is strictly for students to use as part of the learning process. Very informal, but can be very useful. Next, we have avoiding points for self-assessment. As I just said, if it's just part of the learning process, we don't need to give them grades. We usually, in a classroom environment, would not say, all right, everybody, raise your hand so I can give you a point for raising your hand and thinking about your, you know, blah, blah. We don't have to give points for every single thing. If there are things that are really important that you want to make sure get done, then for sure assign points. But if it's just as they're learning and you want to give them some interaction to help in that learning process, then instead try no strings attached. Here's some flashcards. Go ahead and quiz yourself. Say it out loud, tap it. Did you get it? Great, check the box. That feels good to check a box. Did you not get it? That's all right. Now you know which ones you want to study. So for this example, we've used flashcards to create multiplication fact practice, hit in the little chart in case the student needs to refer to the chart inside of a modal dialogue. It's out of the way for those students that don't need it. So that's a great example of just no strings attached. Let students practice and doesn't have to be scored.
Totally. And I love Ethan's examples because they highlight that element that we saw from that Department of Education research about things that improve learners' ability to self-assess or to reflect, right? And so his examples highlight that encouraging learner self-assessment, reflection, and monitoring is great, but that certain design choices can increase or decrease the effectiveness of that encouragement that you're giving them, right? So let's check the research on that a little more specifically. So surprise, surprise, the research reminds us that most students have difficulties regulating their learning or performing metacognitive activities spontaneously, right? They need a little nudge from instructors and designers. And yet, though, we want to do these nudges because in that second bullet point, you see that the use of metacognitive scaffolding has significant and positive effect on student learning achievement, their metacognitive abilities, because they're getting trained in it, like, hey, that worked for me, right? And academic self-efficacy. So essentially having them do that reflection, having them check their learning provides a huge wealth of benefits. And then that last bullet point says self-assessments that require active thinking and active recall strengthens concept understanding and retention. And that research actually just comes from a study about like good old flashcards. Like, why have flashcards stood the test of time? Why are they awesome? Because they make you pause for a moment. They make you do active recall, and that strengthens those neural pathways. Like, I could nerd out on this forever, but it's just a flashcard, you know, but it sometimes good design is just good design. And so, yeah, Brad, you brought this
Stephanie,
point up, right?
well, I had a quick comment on this, and just in looking at this release of dopamine when we're successful at completing a task, when we have something that we, the visual, the flashcards with the check boxes. I know a couple of people in chat were like, yes, I like that idea. No, they're not saved anywhere, but that's not the point. The point is for the, student to kind of acknowledge like their progress. And I love that. I came across some research, Stephanie. I got some research in me as well, but I came across some research that talked about in motivation, when you create a task list and you check those things off, you get this sense of accomplishment. You get this sense of progress, and our brain like loves that. And I think it's the dopamine that kicks in when you check the box. But we feel that sense even if we didn't even actually complete the task fully. That checking off, acknowledging that, gives you a little bit of that nudge, and maybe that little nudge is what you needed going into the next exam or the next quiz. It's just having a sense of like, accomplishment there. And so psychologically speaking, there's something going on when
Yeah.
we check even checking the boxes.
And don't worry, I fact checked you, Brad. So totally.
Yes.
But the work on the screen suggests that we can certainly devote too much time to mundane tasks because of the ease of accessing dopamine boosts. But the researchers do suggest that small wins, or that feeling of completion that you were just describing, Brad, before tackling a larger or harder task, can actually improve our focus or motivation. So there's some strategy in having learners check off a small task and be rewarded just before engaging in the larger task. So if they do that practice quiz that's ungraded again, but they get them right, or they go back and relearn and then they get them right, they're headed into the maybe actual assessment, the quiz, with that dopamine boost and with that like self-efficacy feeling. So we love it. It's super helpful. So, okay, great. We've talked about it, but like, how do you actually take this research and turn it into your design practice? So I'm using the phrase purposeful pause here, like try to implement some purposeful pauses for your learners in that learning process. Click to reveal buttons work really well for question and answer self-assessment, right? Again, the classic flashcard, but virtual in this case. You can link to resources after a reflection question, because perhaps a learner has identified a gap in their understanding and you want to be there right in that moment, just like you would in a face-to-face classroom, to provide a support resource. And I like to think of that as like the choose your own adventure version, where depending on how the learner responded, they get different feedback resources. And then as Brad was talking about, those dopamine hints, adding like a simple checklist to tasks, or even a progress celebration with some imagery. Like, I've worked with instructors where their module wrap-up page has just like a really fun, ridiculous image or GIF that's just like, you did it, like really pumped up. And that makes a difference for our learners. So
Stephanie, it's pronounced GIF,
no.
but I mean, okay, we'll just agree to disagree here. All of those things are really awesome. Like, I love them. They're cool, and they're awesome suggestions. But how do we as designers, how do we do that in Canvas?
Well, Brad, there's an app for that.
There's an app for that? Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Let me show you some examples of what these principles that Stephanie has just shared with us, with a little content page that I've created here. So first, I'm going to just show you what it looks like on the saved page, and then show you a little bit behind the scenes how DesignPLUS works and makes all this really easy for you. So here we've got a page about learning about this band. And again, I would make sure to let students know that none of these things are being saved or graded, so that if they return to this and the checkboxes aren't checked anymore or whatever, that they understand this is just for your learning. not to worry. So we begin with an overview, have these prompts that explain to student what to do. So you click on here, get that overview, read through that, and then you can say, yeah, I've completed the overview section. I put these check boxes at the end of each content block just for Brad. You can meet the band here, and these columns do respond to different screen sizes. There was a comment about that earlier, and when you use DesignPLUS layouts and columns, it knows how to make its layout work for whatever screen size students are looking at. This is an interactive gallery, like what we've seen before, and we can continue to go through. So columns are really powerful. Here we've got a few different flip cards with the discography of the band, with some fast facts on the back, help students see a little bit about their
And you tucked a link on those flip cards, it looks like, on the back too, right? So it's not
Yeah,
just text that
So
you've
if you want to
added.
learn more, you can add a link on the back or whatever else you want to include on the flip cards. The lyrical analysis, I like this one. So you can add tooltips and things to help explain concepts or add additional information that students may find interesting, but not necessarily necessary to their learning. Put all these into accordion so they're not taking up too much space. Here we've got a tab structure with their different music videos, so I can select the tab that I want and watch the video inside here. And then I've got this sort of self-assessment piece here. So starting with some trivia, here we have quick checks, we call them, and students can select an answer and check to make sure that they get the correct answer. You can provide the feedback so that based on their answer, they see whatever text or images or other things you want them to see. So can give some corrective feedback or even extensions. If they get it correct, you could say, learn more here, that kind of thing. We also have a way that you can add in text and get feedback, whether that text matches the correct answer or not.
Is
And
that case sensitive?
it can be if you want it to. When you're programming this, it can be case sensitive. Right now, these ones are not, but flashcards for which album has this track on it. Again, each one of these interactives has a little explanation about what you should do with these things so that it's not just take a guess. And then finally at the bottom, like a reflection, we have a way that you can add in these text boxes where you can write your reflection here. And then obviously if you wanted to save this, you could copy and paste it somewhere else where it will persist. Right now, once I leave this page, this text will be gone. But I can go ahead and write out a reflection and a survey using the same quick check. I can change it into a survey where students can decide what they think, and then it can give specific feedback to them based on their choice. So since this student likes this band, gives them links to their pages to go and listen to more, and then tells them what to do next. So lots of really great stuff going on there. I want to just demo really quick in DesignPLUS, starting from scratch here, how simple it is to add in one of these. The quick check is my personal favorite for adding these in. So I add in the quick check, and you can see that it drops in this this element into the rich content editor, and now I can directly edit this, and I can select which answer is correct. I can add more answers, and go ahead and select what answers the student sees, and then what should the feedback be for students if they select that answer. Here's where I put the question. I can add a heading. This isn't required, but and then down here, this is really nice. I don't have to save the page to see how this is going to work. I can go to this preview panel and I can check and see what's it going to look like when I save this page for students. So quick checks are really nice. You can reorder these if you wanted to. You can remove ones that you don't need anymore. And then another cool feature about this is that you can hide the next button as students are going through modules. You know, they can click next on the module items. You can hide that button until all of the quick checks are complete. And now when students are visiting this page, they need to answer correctly the quick checks before they can proceed with that next button. So it's a fun little advanced feature in there as well. So quick checks are very simple to set up and a great way to get students some feedback really quickly and easily, automatically, that you've already pre-built in there for them. So, all right.
Amazing. I love that. Someone gave a shout out to that hide the next button, and it really encourages that purposeful pause, right? The purposefulness of that quick check is there, and it's just one more layer of, you know, encouraging that, to use the word instead of requiring that, you know. All right, well, we'll try to zip through this last section as well and save some room for questions. Let me share my screen because I realize I'm not currently doing that for you all. Here we go. Okay, so here I am with some examples. This one, try to avoid distant resources. So there are some helpful resources for this discussion linked at the bottom of the discussion. Hooray for some, you know, interactive learning support there. But the links are requiring that the learners navigate away from this page, or in this case, the discussion, or even some of these are external, right? And they have to navigate away from Canvas completely. So there's visual and there's actual distance from the task itself. And so instead, you could try some embedded support, right? So tabs are used here as a mechanism to embed the support right on the page, but without it being like a long scroll through all of those resources. They're nicely labeled and they're kind of nested into these tabs and available if the learner needs them. And so learners can watch the videos, as they're, you know, starting to craft their response to the discussion. They can access those sentence starters if they need to, all of that right above where they're typing their actual response. So another example, perhaps you want to provide review information for learners that need it and extension resources for those who want to learn more. Yes, we love that. That's a great instructional idea. And so you're like, all right, I'm going to embed it on the page. So there's no distance, just like Stephanie just said, right? But now there's a lot of technically optional content on the page, and that can be kind of distracting for the learners and taking their focus away from what is the essential content. So instead, we can use interactivity here to apply some resource choice. Interactivity helps us by embedding the resources still, but placing them maybe visually behind a button, right? This is the supplemental content, so it doesn't need to have the prime real estate. The content functions, in this case, as a pop-up for anyone who needs or wants to interact with it. And so now your learners have the choice to engage with the content they need and are not distracted.
So if educators want to provide these resources to support a variety of learners, what are the best practices, or what's the research say about this differentiation, Stephanie?
Yeah, so if you've been with us before, you've seen this piece of research, but it really encapsulates the idea that it's really easy to overburden your working memory. And if you do that, it can be a major barrier to learning, right? If you're overly burdened, then there is risk that the content you're taking in won't be understood. Information doesn't get encoded effectively in long-term memory. Like it doesn't make it past the initial, like I saw that, but I did nothing with it, right? Or maybe the information actually gets misunderstood or gets confused because there was a bunch of other content there and it just didn't match up what you needed them to. Additionally, supportive information itself is often like information that has a high level of interactivity, right? Maybe it's like watching a supplemental video or something that has that interactivity involved in it. And so some research suggests like not even presenting it to learners as they're working on learning tasks. But we think that design can help us with that. And so again, that last bullet point is just reinforcing non-essential or redundant content. Say you provide 3 different videos in hopes that like one of them gets the point across, but that's redundant and that's quite taxing on the learner, right? And that can direct cognitive capacity away from your learners digesting the most critical information. So what do we do about that? How do we design to get all the benefits of those support and extension resources without the distraction? One way is to implement some active agency for your learners. So you can separate and clearly label your essential content from the supplemental content. You can use things, interactive elements like links, accordions, tabs, pop-ups to then house that supplemental content so it doesn't take up that visual real estate, but is still there right where the learners need it without that distance. And then just a general suggestion, like it's not just learners that need support and it's not just learners who want to learn more, right? Having that nice balance between review and extension opportunities provides your learners with kind of the best leg for increasing their motivation and engaging with the content as needed. But here we are, you know, just like flippantly suggesting that you manually code pop-ups or a series of accordions. And Ethan already made jokes about like having to find all that code in the early days. And yes, absolutely. Maybe I've experienced firsthand the nightmare of accidentally deleting a small tidbit of HTML that turns the entire accordion contents into a heading when I was manually coding. And I did it on an assignment, which means there was no way to restore the previous version. Oops. So Ethan, can you show everyone how DesignPLUS makes differentiating without distraction easy, no matter your coding experience?
Absolutely. Like Chick-fil-A, it's my pleasure. Let's go ahead and share the next instructional page I've got here. Every time Brad goes to Chick-fil-A, he's got to get a Dr. Pepper.
DP only, guys. It's in the sign. Let's go.
All right, so here we got a page about Sublime, my all-time favorite band. And this time, we've got a little notice for students that content marked as optional will not be on the quiz. We're making it clear that, you know, this is content that you really need to pay attention to, and this is content that if you're interested and want to learn more, go for it. So adding in that little tag, this is called a text emphasis in DesignPLUS, and an icon, makes it really easy. And then in the future, you know, I don't even necessarily need to have this because students will know what this means. So first of all, again, starting with a gallery of the band, and we've got to pay our homage to Blue Dog. But you can add in columns and stuff like that. If you want to learn more about the dog, well, that's optional. You don't need to go there. But of course we do, because just look how cute he is. Mixing it up in the studio.
A hat. Oh.
Anyway, so then we've got, you know, the regular, the studio albums that they've recorded. Here you can learn about additional discography, and this is in a pop-up, which goes into some of their other compilations later on. This time we've got kind of this quick check in the middle of the page, and we just got some quick questions where we learn about, no, it's not Eric. Eric was a bass player. I actually saw someone on this webinar is named Eric Wilson, which is pretty cool.
It's Brad, isn't it Brad?
It is. It's Bradley. Bradley.
Let's go.
Yeah. And where are they from, Brad?
Mucho gusto. Me llamo Bradley.
Long Beach. How many albums since they first? Oh, you know what? I didn't really look at these. Okay, their first album was 1992. I don't really want to do the math. So here we've got a nice handy dandy calculator hidden.
Oh, let's do that. Calculator.
Oh yeah, let's do that. 2025 minus 1992, just because, you know. Okay, 33 years.
Nice.
33 years. Holy smokes.
Nailed it.
So again, you got some, you know, some different quick checks and things like that. All right, so then we proceed on and say, okay, so
hey Ethan, real quick, in your quick checks, you're always having text as your feedback. Can I add other things in that feedback? You know, you have text right there, but can I put a link or a video or a button or an image?
Absolutely. This section right here is an open book. You can add any content you want into it, just like you can add any content you want into a pop-up dialogue like this. You can embed things. You can put videos, links, images. Absolutely, if that's what you want to share.
Awesome.
All right. So then we've got, you know, information here. Again, we've got some tool tips to help people know about, you know, maybe some unfamiliar terms that students might need to learn more about. They can kind of read the lyrics along as they're watching the video, listening to the song. So that's a cool little side-by-side. Artwork, optional. Do you think you can draw this? I know you've seen it all over t-shirts everywhere. I don't know if I can, but, you know, let's give it a shot. We've got a nice interactive thing here where I can try and reproduce this. That's just kind of a fun, again, completely optional, but might be a fun way to get
we don't have that drawing tool in DesignPLUS, but the point is that you can use our tools to embed all of your favorite interactive elements, right, Ethan? Like,
I should have mentioned that.
Put anything in there. It's so cool.
Right. the calculator, the drawing tool, the base
Right.
10 blocks that you were, these are all iframes inside of Canvas.
Speaking of that, just a quick shout out because I did it on Monday. If you are Canva, not Canvas, Canva users, and you use their new Canva can code whatever AI thing, it will create for you an interactive widget that you can even, whatever you can think of. And I was able to embed it into my page just the other day. So, anything that's embeddable, as long as the third-party tool allows you to embed it, right? Sometimes there are websites that don't allow you to embed them into others. Is fair game.
Very cool. All right. And then finally, at the end of this page, I've got just kind of a informal, all right, how you doing? Do you feel like you got these things? If you do, great, go to the quiz. If you're still kind of unsure or not really sure, go to extra practice. If you have no idea what's going on and you don't know what to do next, message the teacher. We've got a button, DesignPLUS content shortcut, that when you click on this button, will automatically load up the inbox delivered to the teacher of your course. So that's a nice little shortcut for students. Or I can go to extra practice. I want to learn more about, just go a little deeper so I make sure that I'm really clear on this. Here we've got like a compare and contrast Venn diagram type of thing. This is a block inside of the DesignPLUS library, as well as this cause and effect block, show the band's impacts on music and things like that. And then once I'm ready, I can go to the quiz and show what I know. All right, so real quick, because I know we want to save some time for other questions at the end, but I'm going to just quickly show how easy it is to add in a dialog box, because that's one of our favorites. And then I know we also had a couple people wanting to see the inputs. So quickly, I'm going to go, let's just search it up. That'll be fastest. Dialog box, it drops it in. It drops in two pieces. The trigger text is what you click to see it. And then you can add a title to your dialog box. You can determine how wide you want it to be. And then right here in the editor, you can add in whatever you want, your embeds, your videos, your images, your content, all that kind of stuff. And so you can preview that. When I click on this, then I get to see that modal pop up. So just that easy, really quick, because I think I've got time. Let me show you the inputs. This is a beta tool, so you do have to have beta features enabled on your user settings. You just go to user settings and make sure that you have enable beta tools on. And if you do, then you will have this input as an option. You click on input and you determine what type do you want. Text is where you can input here. You can determine if it has a correct answer, and then you just say, what is the answer? Is it case sensitive or not? You can do a text box. We've seen this one before, where you can write in your reflection. We can do radio inputs. We can do single checkbox options. This is how I created the one for I have completed this section. You just type it into here. Now you have that as a checkbox, just a single checkbox wherever you want it for students. Here's a preview so you can see how that looks. You can also do with the inputs checkbox group, so a list of checkbox options like we saw in the previous one, and then finally a list of radio options if you only wanted to have one to select. So inputs is a really cool new interactive tool. It's still in beta, but go and check it out if you want. And I'm going to wrap that up. Back to you, Stephanie.
Thank you. Yeah, it's good to see kind of the behind the scenes for some of these things, but they are really easy to do. It's kind of like just working with the rich content editor. And I do want to say someone made a great point in the chat about accessibility of those like third-party tools. I love that they highlighted those third-party tools because I want to emphasize that all of these interactive elements that we have with DesignPLUS are designed to be accessible. It's a huge important piece for us. Hopefully you heard us saying we're branching into accessibility matters as an entire series. So do know that like the structure we're giving you is accessible, but certainly whatever someone does within that also needs to be checked to be accessible for your learners. So with all that, I hope that we gave you some ideas, some inspiration, and the tools to make it happen, to add purposeful interactivity to your Canvas courses, for interactive structures, for promoting self-assessment, for differentiating without distracting, all of that, right, to support that active learning and boost engagement. So we will field a few questions, but I think Brad has a couple quick things to plug, and then I guess we have like 2 minutes.
Yeah, let's see if we can get through a couple questions.
Okay.
There are a lot of questions that come in, almost over 50. a lot
Yeah.
of answers are in the Q&A, but a couple to throw out, Ethan and Stephanie, to you guys. Well, I don't know if we have time, but one of them is interested in these templates, right, Ethan? A lot of this content, how do they get access to it? Can they find this content somewhere?
Yeah.
Is it going to be available in the library? Can you just speak to the library real quick, and how might you pull that content into your course?
Absolutely. So for those of you that are interested in getting some of these pre-built designs that we've been working with, a lot of these concepts, image galleries, flip cards for, multiplication facts, a lot of these things exist already in the library, either as template pages or as content blocks. And you can browse the library here. Stephanie's got it pulled up for a variety of content or styles. And the way that the library works is that you pull this into your customizations course, and there's instructions on how to do this, by the way. The customizations course pages, like the content blocks and square brackets, you can add content blocks there, and now they become available to you in your sidebar when you're building. So yeah, so these are examples of ones that are already in there. After this webinar, we'll go ahead and add in some of the best new features and stuff that we've created. Some of them we used the library features already to build with. But anyway, in that import resources, if you click on that, you can see detailed instructions on how you can set this up. If you are managing a primary customizations course, you can import it there, and then those resources become available to everybody. If you're just a single teacher user and you just have your course, you also can import those. You just have to create a page inside of your course where you can put them. So there's instructions on how to do all that. We won't go through the nitty-gritty, but go ahead and refer to this page and to this course in order to discover that.
That's awesome. Another question. I wanted you to show this too, because you didn't highlight it, but sometimes we have images on a page, or we're designing some images with our cards, and the images like get added to cards after you've used the block from the library. You're trying to replace the images, but they're coming in at different sizes and shapes.
Yeah.
Is there a way to kind of, I don't know, resize those and I know we have a new feature out that can help with ratios. Can you maybe just speak to that?
Yeah, I'm pulling that up right now because that's what we used when I was building out these cards. Because again, these images have totally different ratios. So in, if I just head into this card and I select on that image, isn't it style, Ethan? It's like new to me, and I literally just started to
Style and then display ratio. So
yeah, display ratio here. So like I can change the ratio of that image, and then I just set them all to be the same one. I found one that I felt like captured enough of the image across. So if I select this image, you'll see it's also 4:3 here. And then that's why I also used that option to display these all as a pop-up, which was just in my content block. The whole thing is set to, is it in here? Is it in style? I love when I'm live and I'm like, okay, set images in this block as a pop-up image gallery for that content block. So I was able to do the image ratios for this visual, but then I still get the entire normal image size. Anything else you want to layer on that, Ethan?
no, I think that's great.
The one shout out I'll say is for those that have created content in Canvas before you purchase our tools, and then you're now styling or restyling, previous content. With the ratio tool, you can take an image that's in the page and now decide to kind of crop it without having to re-upload, without having to download it and crop it. You can just choose that ratio and do like a 10:3 ratio. It will crop that image into almost like a header. And so really slick, really easy way to even work with previous content. Okay, I know we're like almost right out of time. This kind of leads into our shout out for our upcoming webinar with Canvas. But are these things accessible? The things we talked about, Ethan, the tabs, the arrows, and like the accordions, and are these accessible?
Yes, yeah, we put a lot of stock into making sure that the things that we release are accessible for students. And anytime a user reports, hey, this could be improved or whatever, we make sure to work on those things and release into production as quickly as possible, because we want to make sure that everything that we put into your hands works for everybody.
That's awesome. So I know there are several questions around the accessibility of that. And when you're embedding third-party tools, you got to be mindful the accessibility of those tools. You know, we obviously can't control what's embedded in those iframes, and so you want to just be mindful of that approach. And we do have an upcoming webinar with Canvas. I'll drop the link in the chat so you can sign up for that. That's going to be all about accessibility, and that's with Instructure. And so you know, you'll hear some great things from us and from them. You'll find our other upcoming webinars on May 6th, as you can see on the screen, and with that's a FSW and Quality Matters. And June 3rd, the Accessibility Matters live, you know, next webinar. So please find us there. Thank you for joining us. We will be in person at some of these events in Illinois and, hey, Long Beach. Maybe we should figure out how to connect with Sublime. I'm just saying at OTC. I'm not
The
saying,
90s
but
alt lovers in the chat, they were blowing it up.
let's go. Let's go. We'll be at in Missouri. I'll actually be the one there in Columbia, and then down in ISTE, and of course at InstructureCon. So if you're around, we'd love to see you, give you a high five, check out your designs, you know, sing a little ditty with you, whatever it takes to have some fun. We love you guys. We appreciate that you're all here, and thanks for joining us on this Design Matters Live.
Thanks, everyone.